Hello, today we are going to discuss about SAP S4 Hana Cutover. So we will in this session we will discuss about what is cutover, what it means literally, and what are the different phases of cutover, and what are the types of cutover, and what all activities are involved in as part of cutover. Because cutover is a single umbrella term, but underneath there are separate activities, separate phases, and there is a methodology to uh, to perform cutover. So we are going to discuss at a high level what all those activities are there, what those phases are, and because it's a series of videos which I'm producing on the cutover. So this session is about giving a high level overview, and then we'll go to details in subsequent videos as to what those phases and activities are there. Cutover. So what is cutover means? The cutover is basically migrating the processes, data, and users. Please note processes, data, and users from old legacy system, which can be an ECC or it can be a non-SAP system. So it's not necessary that you will always be doing a cutover from ECC system. Some companies are using D365, which is a Microsoft product. Other companies are using Oracle Fusion product, which is a Oracle's product. So they are migrating from those legacy system to S4 HANA system. So the legacy system can be any system, ECC or system from any other system vendor like Oracle or Microsoft. So so coming to cutover, this is the process of migrating your processes. When we say processes, it is about the finance processes, your sales processes, your procurement processes, and the other like manufacturing processes from one system, from the legacy system to S4 HANA. So that is our process. And then the next one is the data. There is the data in the legacy system. There is a historical data, which is the data has been accumulated over 20 years, 25 years. So out of that, we want to bring the active data, which is basically business is using now, which is used in some transactions, which is about master data like customer, vendor, materials. So there may be inactive data. So we'll leave the inactive data in legacy system. We'll bring the active data, which is of use by business at the moment. Okay, so that is about data. So there is a phase called data migration. And then the third thing involved in the cutover is the users. There are users who are using the legacy system. We want to move them from legacy system to S4 HANA. What does it mean? It means that we have to create specific business specific roles for those users in S4 HANA, and then so that they can use S4 HANA when we have completed the cutover, and they can stop using the legacy system. They can use S4 HANA. Okay, so this is about the migrating the processes, data, and users from old legacy system to new S4 HANA system in a very controlled manner, that we can't just shift the data from legacy to S4 HANA. So there is a process involved, the whole process of involved, so that we do it right, because it is the business. If you don't do it in a controlled manner, there will be impact on the business. Business will not be able to use the system and not conduct its day-to-day business. So that's why it says controlled manner. We do the cutover, we do the testing, we make sure that everything is fine on S4 HANA after the cutover. Only then the users start using new system. So basically putting in place some controls while we are migrating from from old system to new system. Okay. So what is involved in what is the process of cutover? How do we cutover, or we move from old legacy system to S4 HANA, which is our target new system. So there are couple of activities as we discussed slightly in previous slide. Now let's discuss separately on these points. So the first thing is creating new processes in SAP S/4HANA configuration. Basically, we configure the system. So before we cut over, we need to do the configuration in the S/4HANA. When we say configuration, it is about doing the setting up the GL account, setting up the sales organization, setting up purchase organization. So that is configuration. And then RICEFs. Basically, RICEFs are nothing but the additional interfaces, reports, workflows, other than what is already there in S4. So RICEFs basically mainly speaks about the integrations, reports, and if there is any new workflows are required between S4 HANA and the other systems, which are, there are some integrated system which will integrate with S4 HANA, which were earlier integrating with legacy system or ECC, they will now integrate with S4 HANA. So creating those interfaces, that is all covered as part of the RICEF. RICEF basically stands for workflow, reports, interfaces, and any kind of new reports or workflows, anything new that's required, any new development work, that is called RICEFs. Okay, and second thing is about data migration. So data migration, as we discussed, and is quite self-explanatory, moving the data from our legacy system to S4 HANA. So data migration will in itself is a very, very big topic, and there will be a separate team who will migrate data. They will take data from legacy system, they do the ETL process, they will extract the data from the legacy system, they will transform it as per the requirement of S4 HANA, and then they will load into S4 HANA. So we will go into detail of this process in subsequent sessions, but for now this is one of the key activities included in Cutover. And then next one is integration migration. So integration migration means SAP in itself, in legacy system, you might be using several integrated external systems like payment systems or credit card systems, which are outside your company, but your SAP system or your legacy system interacts with it and sends files to it or sends data or through API, etc. So those are integrated systems, like your HR system, your expense management system, which are outside your legacy system, but they are integrated with that. So we need to move these integrated system also to S4 HANA. So we have to create new integrations or new development for creating for setting up these integration with S4 HANA. And last but not the least is the user roles and access management. So for performing various business activities, every business user will be assigned some role, and they will be given access according to that in S4 HANA. So that is before they can use S4 HANA system, their access, their roles should be linked to their user IDs, and they should be given the right access to perform the business activity that they should be performing as part of their role. Okay. Now coming to, let's go a little bit more detail about cutover process. So what are the types of cutover? When I say types, the cutover can be divided into widely into two different categories. One is technical cutover and the other is business cutover. So basically any activities that is linked to setup of system, on any technical activities performed by basis team, performed by functional team, performed by security team, or any other technical team, a network team. So all those activities come under technical cutover. And the other thing is business cutover. Basically it is about what functions are performed by, what activities are performed by business users. They will be covered as part of business cutover. So basically the overall cutover is not just a pure technical activity as it seems from the name, that moving from one system to other system, So for moving from one system to the other system in a controlled manner, there are activities for technical team, there are some activities for business users. So that's why it is divided into two part. Some of the examples for technical cutover are like taking up the backup of S4HANA system, or transport import into production environment. Because you have been testing in pre-prod environment or quality environment, you have done the UAT, so all the transports are there. So as part of cutover, you will import those into production environment. Then basis configuration. Basis will do their configuration because the S4 HANA system maybe is quite new system, completely new system. So they need to set up all the security, firewall, connectivity for the external systems, etc. And batch job scheduling, because this is a completely new system. So all the batch jobs which were running in legacy system, they will have to be set up again in S4 HANA. The next activity as part of technical cutover is functional configuration, or what we normally call red book entries. So most of the code will be imported into production environment through the transports using STMS, which is basically SAP transport management system. But there are certain activities which are relevant to a particular environment, like they won't be moved from one environment like quality to production using the transport. So they have to be these activities have to be performed in every environment manually by the functional consultants. Like the number ranges are there, so the number ranges have to be set up. So there are other activities or other configuration which the functional consultant has to perform. So those will be, we call them red book entries or manual function configuration. The other activity, so the next one in technical coverage is deactivation of integration on the old legacy system. Why we need to deactivate? Because we have to stop the activity, data going from legacy system to integrated system, and from incoming data from integrated system to the legacy system. Because at some point we have to stop that flow so that we can move this integration to S4 HANA. Because after the cutover, S4 HANA will be integrated with the external systems, and so we have to deactivate those interfaces in the legacy system. And then we have to, because the S4 HANA has new interfaces all with the existing integrated system, so we have to deploy those on the integrated. There will be some changes, some new folder creations, or some API creations on the external systems. So those activities will be done once the deactivation has happened with the legacy system. And finally, once S4 HANA is ready, we have done all the transport, we have done the functional configuration, we have done the data migration. Then we need to do the activation of integrated systems so that we can test end-to-end process with S4 HANA and all the integrations around it. And user role setup is again a technical exercise. This is done by by the basis team by importing the transport. So these user roles are set up as transports, they are tested in quality environment, and then they are imported into production environment. So this is also a technical activity. And last but not least, the data migration, that is also part of technical cutover. So all the data is imported into production. Basically, we do the ETL process, and all the data from legacy system is loaded into S4 HANA so that it is ready for business to perform business activities using the data. So that is another type of activity which is part of technical cutover. So, okay, so this is about technical cutover in short. And now coming to business cutover. So what is business cutover? Business cutover is any activities that business need to perform or business user need to perform. One of them is business ramp down. So business ramp down is basically reducing the business transactions or business activities near the time of cutover. For example, before we do the cutover, we should stop, so the business should stop using the legacy system. They, like for example, they are submitting any expenses, or somebody is doing a good receipt, or anybody is doing a good issue. We say that if we can do, we should do only important, critical goods issue or good receipt, or any kind of creating the purchase orders, etc., before the cutover, so that the data volume is less, and the new purchase orders or new good receipt or issues, they can be done after the cutover is done. Those can be done in S4 HANA. So this is done basically to reduce the volume, so that we don't create a lot of data near the time of data migration. So whatever is there in the system before, let's do it, let's migrate that, and if any further transactions are required, we do it in cutover in the S4 HANA system. So there are a lot of activities which we will slow down or reduce before the cutover. So that is called business ramp down. Month end closing, when we are migrating the data from legacy system to S4 HANA, business will be doing the month end closing activity. In finance, they will be closing month end, they will closing the AP, account payable, account receivable, fixed assets, and then they will be closing the GL balance. They will be generating the GL balances, which will be migrated as part of data migration to S4 HANA. The next thing is interim operating procedures. So there are certain, so at some point when we have migrated, where we are migrating data, we have to close the system, we have to disable the legacy system, so that business can stop creating data, because we have to migrate that data to S4. If business keep creating data in legacy system, there will be no stoppage, or we will not be able to migrate everything. So we have to stop at some point, and then we migrate all the data in legacy from legacy system to S4, and any further processing can happen in S4 HANA. We just close down the legacy system, we stop disable all business users from performing any activity in legacy system, so that there is no data which remains in legacy system and is not migrated to S4 HANA. So there will be a period what we normally call as blackout period. In that period, the legacy system will be down, data migration team will be taking the data out of it and migrating into S4 HANA. And once S4 HANA data is migrated, then business can start using that system and process that data. Okay. And then, and during this blackout period, if there are certain activities which have to happen, which are business critical, those for them will have the interim operating procedures. Basically, can we do those things manually if we have to send some payments, urgent payments, or we have to place some urgent orders while the system is down, the legacy system is down, and there is a cutover happening on the S4 HANA. So business doesn't have neither the new system nor the old system. So they will have some operating procedures which basically to keep the business running. So there will be some, basically these are the emergency procedures for any kind of urgent activities, urgent business needs. Okay. And then there is pen test. Basically, once the system is ready, data migration is completed, functional configuration is completed, and then business will check that the system is working end to end. So they will just do some kind of very small amount of money, for example, sending a penny from SAP to the payment system, from payment system to further down to Swift or whichever system in the whole chain, just to see that the data is flowing as expected. This is called pen test. Yeah. And so after everything is completed, this most important activity before the system is released to the wider, to everybody in business users. There is a ramp up activity. Basically, some of the business users which are business champions, they will check key business processes. Basically, they will log into the system and they will see that they are able to perform those activities. Anything that payment has come in while the system was down, they can process that payment, they can create a sales order, they can create a purchase order, or they can navigate the screens just to make sure the system is stable and it is good for all the business user to log in and perform the business activities. So this is a kind of, before the system going live, this is the activity that business needs to perform, business user will perform to give confidence that yeah, everything is fine, we are good, and we can open the system to all the business users. So these are two types of cutover, and these are quite a lot of things covered under it. We'll go into detail in our subsequent sessions, one by one in each of them, but just to give you a high level overview, these are the. And then coming to cutover process, how does the cutover works as a cutover manager? What all you are supposed to do, or what how will you manage it? What all needs to be things need to be taken care of? So first of all is the cutover planning. There has to be a end-to-end plan for technical cutover and business cutover, because it will be a very lengthy plan which will cover every single task that business or technical teams need to perform, because we are building altogether a new system. So there will be hundreds or thousands of tasks which need to be performed so that we don't miss, and there will be dependencies among those tasks. So this customer planning will include basically identifying all those tasks. How will you do that? You will speak to different teams. You will speak to basis team, you will speak to functional team, you will speak to business, you will speak to data migration team. So they will have their list of activities. You'll take all their activities and those will be put in a single plan, because every team will have their mini plans, and we need to consolidate all those plans with, because all these things are dependent on each other. Like functional team is dependent on the basis team performing their task. Data migration team is dependent on the configuration being completed before they can start the data migration. So all these activity needs to be put in a single plan with all the dependencies mentioned, that which each activity is dependent on which activity, who is going to perform it, how much time it's going to take. So that will be part of cutover planning. I will go into detail in other sessions, but this is for now, this is what it means. And so once we have done the cutover planning, we done some cutover workshops with different teams. We got all their tasks. We just produce a single plan. And then how do we know that this plan is good? Cutover planning, this plan is good. So to test that plan, we'll do some kind of trial cutovers. What is trial cutover? Trial cutover basically means running all those activities which we noted in our cutover plan, and everybody execute those activity in the actually like time, acts task by task, and we note down the times, how much time it's going to take for each task. Have we noted all the dependencies correctly? And when we do this trial cutover, we are testing the cutover plan, whether our cutover plan is correct, or there are some activities missing, or do we need to add something more in it. So that will come out from trial cutovers. So there can be one trial cutover, like when we are deploying the solution to quality environment, we can use it for trial cutover. That time we can do the deployment in a controlled manner, going through the cutover plan, and just see that every activity is performed according to it. This is required because when we build something new environment, we deploy the solution or import the transport from development to quality, and then there is a lot of configuration as well. So to make sure that everything is captured correctly, all dependencies captured, all the tasks are captured, we need to have a plan around it. And that is our first test of the cutover plan, that is called trial cutover. Okay, and then we have the dress rehearsal, which is a much bigger exercise. It's just a trial cutover was the first exercise. We refined our plan, and now before we go live, before we do the cutover on production environment, we do a dress rehearsal. So dress rehearsal is nothing but rehearsing that cutover plan, rehearsing how we imported the transport, rehearsing data migration timings, rehearsing all the how we are going to do it we'll rehearse it exactly like that, so that we can get confidence that we have a good plan which we can use for production cutover. So dress rehearsal is basically a repetition, basically a rehearsal or exercise before we go for production deployment or production cutover. First, that comes the production cutover. Once we are happy with the REST rehearsal, we have done all the deployments, we have done all the completed all the activities, we have tested the plan is good, and then we go for production cutover. Production cutover is basically deploying all the functional configuration, basis configuration, data migration to the production environment. Once the environment is ready, business has started using it. So business will start finding some issues, obviously, because it's a new platform. So there will be a lot of issues. So we have to attend those issues immediately. We can't just ask the users to raise a service ticket like we used to do in the legacy system, and then wait for the SLA for the service desk to pick up the, because these are important business processes which may not work according to our plan. So that phase is called in the, so the couple of weeks after the production cutover is done is called hypercare. Hypercare means there is an increased focus. There is increased focus on looking at the issue, resolving the issues immediately. As soon as the issue is raised by business, we need to just jump on it and look at the issue, because there will be some critical issues as well coming, because it's a completely new system. So there you might have missed some configuration, we might have missed some data, we might have missed some roles for users. So there will be so many issues which will basically might create problem for the business to use the system. So we need to look at them as soon as they are raised. So there will be a hypercare period for say 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depending on how many issues we get, what is the severity of those issues. So there will be daily calls, or to look at any issues that have been raised as part of hypercare.